Thursday, Bishop on Air, live with you each and every weekday morning here across the internet, on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, on Rumble. We clip out the show as well throughout the day, so you can check these out if you can't join us live, so appreciate you guys being here. We'll talk about the Illinois State House, and back at it today, third day this week. Some priorities being laid out. We'll also take a look at the latest in gun control legislation. The Illinois State Rifle Association has quite a list that they're monitoring. We'll also check in with the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police, Chris Southwood, that organization's leader. He'll join us and talk a little bit about the impacts of the southern U.S. border on law enforcement, the Pullover bill that was sponsored by State Representative Justin Slaughter, and also some criticism of the Safety Act. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up in about 9 minutes. But one thing just to get on everybody's radar today, you've got the U.S. Supreme Court going to hear the challenge of former President Donald Trump being on the ballot. So that's going to happen today in the U.S. Supreme Court. Also interesting to note that U.S. Senator Dick Durbin has called for Justice Clarence Thomas to recuse himself from that case. Interesting, we've got the recusal motion being offered up there, but that case here in Illinois with the gun and magazine ban, obviously interesting to see recusals not pushed by Democrats in that case. All right, so that's just something I wanted to put out there. We're not necessarily going to delve into that. We got plenty more to get to here with Bishop on Air. All right, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and stay tuned. Quick breather. The Illinois General Assembly in the second year of their 2-year term, starting back up, things getting off to a little bit of a slow start as expected. But when it comes to gun legislation, there's a ton of it that's on the table, and the Illinois State Rifle Association does monitor a ton of stuff. So let's go through some of that, as we've also got headlines out of Virginia that they have passed a ban on the sale, purchase, and transfer of certain types of firearms. Anna Dale today reports that the legislation was introduced by Democrats. In violation would be a Class 1 misdemeanor, among other pieces in this. You've got a ban on the sale of possession of different types of devices. And this all being in Virginia, but in Illinois, we've had, of course, past year, a ban on semi-automatic firearms and all of the litigation that's been going on. No updates out of the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court. That, of course, is where they're attacking the law on the merits, with the state looking to defend the law on the merits. Of course, the Southern District case had gone all the way up to the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals on preliminary issues, and even went to the Supreme Court with a different case. But it appears that it's time to go on this on the merits, and Southern District Federal Judge Stephen McGlynn making that happen. So we'll see what the next dates are for that. But obviously, there's a lot of other things on the table when it comes to legislation, and let's take a look at the State Rifle Association's review of some of these measures that could be coming up. They have a whole list here at their website, isra.org, where you can see what they're monitoring. But obviously, that's a lot of legislation. Not all of this is going to advance. Other things may advance. It's still early on in the second year of the 2-year term of the General Assembly. But ISRA does have bills that they support. One from Democrat Anthony DeLuca in the House. It would essentially bring about, some firearm offenses for certain individuals. It amends the Juvenile Court Act in 1987, provides that if a minor has previously been placed on probation for an offense that involves the possession or discharge of a firearm, not causing any injury, and is convicted of subsequent offenses involving the possession of a discharge of firearm, not causing any injury, then the court shall require the minor to participate in social service programs offered through juvenile probation and comply with referral recommendations. So a little bit of penalty enhancements there. And looking at the latest status on this, really hasn't moved much. You've got the Repeal the FOID Act, a bill that the ISRA supports, and the firearm owner identification card is the card that's required by Illinois residents if they want to own or buy ammunition or firearms. It's currently being challenged in federal court, and clearly that's something I think is going to be moving later on this year. In May, you've got the judge in that Southern District case that's going to be looking for discovery. So we'll be dipping back into that federal lawsuit when it comes to the FOID card. But in the meantime, you've got Republicans trying to repeal the FOID card. Don't really anticipate that moving forward too much. Other measures that the State Rifle Association is looking at, you've got one they support from Republican Charlie Meyer that would lower the age for the FOID card from 21 to 18. That really hasn't moved much. Concealed carry reciprocity. It amends the Concealed Carry Act in Illinois and says that Illinois State Police shall allow for non-resident firearm concealed carry license applications from any state or territory of the United States. So reciprocity has always been one of those particular issues. You've also got concealed carry fees that they're looking to drop. You've got the Firearm Owner ID Repeal Act from John Cabello, another measure that would try to repeal the FOID card. Concealed carry on public transport. This is from Republican State Representative Patrick Windhorst. And this is another issue that's being litigated. There are efforts to try to reverse state law that prohibits people from carrying their firearms with a concealed carry license on public transit. And you've got other so-called, sensitive places that include, parks and certain types of buildings. So interesting to see all that transpire as well, not just in legislation that's being proposed by Republicans, but in lawsuits that are being filed as well. So a variety of other legislation that they are ultimately supporting through the State Rifle Association. But then you look at the measures that they oppose, all right? And that's a long list as well. And you can go through all of this yourself again at isra.org. You've got measures dealing with... let's see here. Fraud and deceptive practices provides it's unlawful to practice within the meaning of the act for any firearm industry member through the state, manufacturing, importing, or manufacturing. That's already law, so the governor approved that. You've got House Bill 676 was kind of an omnibus bill, putting a whole bunch of stuff in there. There was things in there like limiting how far you could be for hunting to enhancing the red flag laws in the state of Illinois. It's a pretty large bill. That really hasn't gone anywhere. And you'll see that there's a separate bill that would deal with some of those issues. But also measures dealing with taxing firearms or taxing ammunition. Again, another measure that's being challenged in Cook County courts. We reviewed that case a couple of weeks ago of the appeals court and state courts taking up the oral arguments in a challenge of Cook County's ammo tax and firearm tax. Other measures, again, that the State Rifle Association is opposing. One from Democrat State Representative LaShawn Ford. It amends the Firearm Owner's ID Card Act and provides that the sale or transfer of firearms is subject to the Firearm Transfer Inquiry Program required in a criminal background check by the Illinois State Police of the person before the person may acquire a firearm. You've got others dealing with firearms dealers and firearms ranges and setting setbacks for certain areas, 1,500 feet rather than 500 feet from a school. So they want to try to limit where firearms retailers can be. Microstamping, this has been around for years, but ultimately it would create the microstamping funding program. What is microstamping? It's where they put a little type of serial number on certain items, and this would, in particular, it requires a variety of different things. Creating the Microstamp Funding Act provides the state shall establish a grant program for law enforcement officers to microstamp ready firearms. So interesting there. Another ammunition tax measure, criminalizing body armor. This is from Democrat State Representative Maura Hirschauer. Provides that with certain exceptions, it's unlawful for any person in the state to knowingly manufacture, deliver, sell, import, or purchase, or cause to be manufactured, deliver, sold, or imported, or purchased by another, any armor plate, body armor, or military helmet. And that's been stuck in the House Judiciary Committee since last year. Again, we're in the second year of the 2-year term, so a lot of this legislation is still viable and could move forward. So things that we have to consider here. So I wanted to just get this out there and get your attention on some of these things. Of course, you guys come here to get the latest on gun control in Illinois, but it's obvious that with the state legislature in session, a lot of other things could possibly happen. But an interesting note, this happened yesterday. Police arrested dozens of protesters who blocked a weapons manufacturer in Niles Wednesday. The group laid down in the driveway and chanted and held signs accusing Woodward Weapons of making bombs used in the Gaza Strip. Police in riot gear arrested 33 protesters who had linked themselves together, blocking access to that facility. So pretty interesting to see that as well. So that's just some of the latest. We'll actually be delving back into some more State House stuff coming up a little bit later on, so stay tuned for that. But up next, we'll connect with Chris Southwood from the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police. Talk about a variety of things, so stay tuned. That's coming up next here with Bishop on Air. Wanted to remind you guys, check out bishoponair.com. It's how you can find out how to get a hold of me. You can also grab some merchandise. Click on the store, and you can join us there and support the program in that fashion. You can also get the link to the Discord channel. So we'll be, of course, doing some Discord conversations. I think tomorrow we'll open things up quite a bit for the Discord conversations. So looking forward to that here with Bishop on Air. And in just moments, we're going to connect with Chris Southwood. He is chiming in here in just a few. And as we get that connected, we'll have him on to talk a bit about a variety of things. So stay tuned for that here with Bishop on Air.
There you are, Greg. I mean, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, sir. All right. So I don't got any video coming through, but let's go ahead and get this started. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
So we've got, of course, the Safety Act in Illinois, which has a whole bunch of different types of regulations on police, also criminal justice implicated in that. You've got the Pretrial Fairness Act, and then something else in Illinois that police and prosecutors are having to deal with. But a whole bunch of other things as well that I want to talk with the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police, Chris Southwood. He joins us now to discuss these and other things here with Bishop on Air. Thanks for taking time with us each and every weekday morning. You can find this anywhere, Facebook, YouTube, X. Just search out Bishop on Air, and you can join us that way. Chris, thanks for taking time with us. We don't have you on video, but I do want to just hear some of your thoughts about a variety of things. We'll talk about the Safety Act and some pretty alarming stories and headlines as of late. But in particular, I wanted to get you about what happened with the southern U.S. border and the vote to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, and apparently the National Fraternal Order of Police putting out a statement of support for Mayorkas before yesterday's vote, which ultimately did fail to pass to impeach Mayorkas. But what's the gist here? Give us that breakdown.
Well, I mean, we released a statement yesterday saying that the Illinois FOP wasn't consulted at all about this decision by National, and I just want to make it clear that the reason we released the statement was to let our membership here in Illinois know that the leadership in Illinois had no knowledge of this. We weren't given the opportunity to input anything on the decision by National to support Secretary Mayorkas, and had they asked, I think the answer would have been a resounding no from the membership here in Illinois. So to be clear, I mean, we're not trying to get into an argument with National, nothing like that. It's just we want to make it crystal clear to our membership that we, the leadership in Illinois, did not support this, and make sure our membership understands that in Illinois we did not support this.
So what have the impacts been for Illinois law enforcement when it comes to dealing with the issue of migrants coming here and flooding the state?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably the same for any other state, other than the fact that Illinois being the sanctuary state that it is, we have a tremendous influx of these illegal immigrants. Crime by the illegal immigrants obviously is rampant, and there's just no way that we could support the Secretary Mayorkas with his border policies. I know there's a lot of people who say, well, it's not his fault. He works for the Biden administration and he's at their whim and will. But, supporting Secretary Mayorkas in these impeachment hearings is, to me, almost the same as supporting the Biden administration with their open border policies. And there's just no way that we could do that here in Illinois. I mean, many of our officers have been assaulted. We had some Chicago John Deneen Lodge 7 officers who are Chicago police officers that were actually assaulted by, the illegal immigrants. And there's just no way we could support the current policy that is our southern border. So,
talking with Chris Southwood, he is the president of the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 41 here on Bishop on Air. So clearly it's going to be an ongoing issue with Mayorkas not being impeached by the House. And we'll revisit this as we see what happens at the Illinois State House. But Chris, as you know, a lot happens at the Illinois State House. We're in the second year of the 2-year term for the General Assembly. We've seen several things floated. I do want to get your reaction to one measure from State Representative Justin Slaughter, who said that this is a conversation starter. But before we get there, some headlines coming out of Illinois dealing with the Safety Act. Surely you've seen this article that highlights what happened in Dalton with an individual who was on electronic monitoring. And this doesn't deal with the Pretrial Fairness Act, but it does deal with somebody who was on electronic monitoring and allowed to, be out doing, quote, basic necessities for 3 days or something like that. But this story out of the Chicago suburbs raising some alarm for people as you've got a Markham man accused in a 2017 murder charged in a mass shooting in Dalton. And apparently he was on electronic monitoring. Your thoughts on this, and are you seeing similar things happen across the state?
Absolutely similar things are happening across the state. The electric monitoring, the Pretrial Fairness Act, all the there may be some who think that it's working. I don't believe it's working at all from a law enforcement perspective. I mean, this whole idea that you can tell somebody to, yeah, you have to come back to court. You bring them in the booking area, you book them, you put them back out on the street with a notice they have to come back to court. These folks aren't going to come back to court. They're just not going to do it. There's so many examples of individuals on electronic monitoring committing crimes. I mean, this isn't nothing new. It's been happening for quite some time now. I can give you example after example of that happening. So it doesn't work, and it's not working, and it's certainly not fair to the citizens of Illinois. I think their safety is endangered by this, and hopefully at some point we'll see the light and we'll make some changes.
What kind of changes do you think are necessary in this ongoing conversation about criminal justice and regulations on police? I mean, the headlines out of Chicago and the suburbs, alarming, to say the least. But what do you think needs to happen here? We had a hearing yesterday in a Senate Special Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety where they talked about more anti-violence programs. Is that the solution here, or is there something else that's not being done that should be done?
I I don't believe that's the solution at all. I think it could possibly be part of the solution, but I don't foresee it as a big part of the solution. We just need to start supporting our law enforcement officers. We've got to get back to, there has to be punishment for these type of, for criminals. Right now, there's very little respect for law enforcement in Illinois, certainly very little or none from, the criminal element. But yeah, there has to be some type of accountability. And right now, there just isn't. I mean, you commit whatever crimes you commit. If you're not remanded and held in jail until your trial date, you're right back out on the street. I mean, how many examples do we have to give of people, recommitting crimes within 24 hours of being released? It's just not there's just no there's no punishment anymore that fits the crime. I think we're going the wrong direction there. I think we need to really start cracking down, and hopefully at some point people are going to have enough of this and this experiment, or whatever you want to call it, that we're doing here in Illinois, and we can go back to enforcing the laws in Illinois.
Talking with Chris Southwood. He is president of the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police. And next, I want to get your reaction to a bill that the sponsor says isn't going to go anywhere, but he filed it, and it's still viable. I don't think I've seen it being tabled yet, though I haven't checked this morning. But talk about that piece of legislation from State Representative Justin Slaughter that would say police can't pull people over for a whole host of infractions, from speeding, from broken headlights to loud exhausts to even wearing a seatbelt. Any of evidence found for other crimes where this particular pullover was predicated upon one of these items can't be used in prosecution. What is this all about here?
You tell me, Greg. When this law came out, it's one of those ones I had to read it several times, and in my mind, I'm thinking, is this real? I don't know how any legislator would submit a bill such as that. I can't imagine the chaos if a bill like that passed. I mean, a few years ago, the Oklahoma City bomber, I mean, that's how he was ultimately caught, was because a trooper in Oklahoma stopped him for a registration violation. I found a weapon in the vehicle. He was arrested, and from there, ultimately found guilty of the Oklahoma City bombing. Now, that's an extreme example, but you can give you example after example all over of the enforcement of these laws, like speeding, loud exhaust, registration violations. They so often lead to a more serious arrest. And you take that out of it, though, just the removal of those sections being, allowed, a police officer being allowed to stop someone for those violations. Who would ever buy license plates again? I mean, if nobody's out there to enforce a registration violation, why would you buy plates for your vehicle? Because the government tells you have to. Um, there's no, there would be really no punishment for not purchasing registration. Police can't stop you for it. So just the absolute chaos that this bill would have caused with any serious consideration, I can't imagine. It still boggles my mind that something like that was even introduced.
What does it mean, though, you think, for conversations moving forward? Is this kind of, throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks type of thing, to where they already passed the measure that says people can't be pulled over for having, fuzzy dice hanging from their rearview mirror, right? So is this just the next thing of, hey, we're going to throw everything at the wall, see what we get the most pushback on, and then go with the lesser items, kind of boiling the frog, so to speak?
Well, you have to wonder if that isn't the thought for the future. But quite honestly, to say that you want to start a conversation over this isn't a way to start a conversation. I mean, if a General Assembly member wants to start a conversation, certainly with the FOP, as the largest law enforcement organization of its kind in Illinois, pick up the phone and call me. I'll be glad to go down and sit down and have a conversation with any of them over any topic, and let them know our concerns and the reasons why we would not support this, and maybe even offer suggestions of some other way to approach this. But with this particular bill, that wasn't a conversation starter. That was a conversation ender. There was nothing good in this bill for public safety. There was nothing good in this bill for law enforcement. There was just nothing in there worth talking about from a public safety standpoint. So what do I think they're trying to do? I don't have any idea what was in his mind of what he's thinking he's going to try to do in the future, or conversation starter or anything else. But, that's not the way I believe a General Assembly member should start a conversation. I mean, call some committee hearings if that's what you want to do. Whatever you want to do, pick up the phone, call me, but don't introduce a bill and then say, hey, I want to sit down and talk about it.
Chris Southwood, president of the Illinois Fraternal Order of Police, greatly appreciate you taking the time with me this morning, and we'll definitely follow up on these and other issues and how they impact law enforcement in the state of Illinois.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's always good to be on your show. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. It is Bishop on Air here with YouTube, X, Facebook, and what else did I not mention? Oh, yeah, Rumble as well. So check all that out here with Bishop on Air. All right. Thanks to Chris Southwood again. And stay tuned. More segments here in just moments. After a breather, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. All right. Make it happen. The Illinois State House continues in spring session, the third day this week that they're in session. Tons of stuff going on, and a lot of legislators laying out their various priorities. Of course, I do this job here on my own time, broadcasting from home, but my full-time gig has me with the Center Square at the Illinois State House, tracking legislation and following what's going on there. Yesterday, there were conversations about taxes. There were conversations about social media. The Manufacturers Association putting out their priority lists. Also, an interesting conversation from Black leaders about HIV and AIDS funding from the state, they say, is not going to Black-led organizations. Instead, it's going to more white-led organizations Plus, you've got a bill that's been filed by State Representative Cam Buckner that's raising some eyebrows. It is Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out with me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. But let's talk about taxes. You had a couple of different measures that were floated yesterday, including one from Democrats who are looking to bring about a state child tax credit. And one measure already filed is from Mike Simmons, a Democrat state senator, who would give up to $700 in a tax credit for families with kids. But another measure brought by several Democrats in the House and the Senate would do something similar, but not as generous. Here is State Senator Omar Aquino with the Democrat caucus laying out some of their priorities.
And I'm also the father of toddlers, of twin toddlers, Omar, Sebastian, and Isabel Sofia. So I'm the purchaser of Pampers, of clothing that doesn't grow with my children. It's not easy for families across this state these days. And that's why it's time for this state, our state, to make investments in our future. The child tax credit we are proposing this year would put money back into working class parents' pockets, directly in their pockets. Specifically, it would provide $300 for Illinois families who earn less than the median income. That might not sound like a lot, but it can make all the difference. That little extra change helps families stay afloat, provide a good education for their children, and reinvest that money right back into our local economies. The effect would be immense for families in my district and across our state. In terms of raw numbers, nearly half of the kids in Illinois, 1.4 million, let me repeat that, nearly half of all children in our state would benefit from this relief. Half, that's a great number. Every day, I hear from constituents who support this effort and constituents who benefited from the federal child tax credit expansion.
So obviously, the State House looking at that as a possibility. But you have Republicans who offered up a measure at the Illinois State House that would ultimately bring about some property tax relief. And that property tax relief in a state like Illinois, you're looking at the state having some of the highest property taxes in the country. Illinois is regularly listed as having the highest property taxes of all states. But you had state representatives Dan Ugasti and Tim Mozinga. They welcomed in former state representative Mark Batnick to explain their proposal to help lower property taxes by taking more state dollars and putting those towards local pensions, thereby local funds not necessarily having to pay higher pension costs, and that could help drop some of the property taxes. So those were some of the property tax proposals that were offered up at the Illinois State House. And that wasn't the only thing. You have other measures that were brought forward. State Senator Sue Rezin, she had a news conference yesterday that laid out her Safe Screens, Healthy Minds legislation. So I'm just going to read to some of this that ultimately would come about if Senate Bill 3334 was ultimately passed. And that measure, known as the Illinois Age Appropriate Design Code Act, it would, based off law that California passed, but with improvement, Rezin says, it would require high default privacy settings at the point of design and clear language and tools to help children and their parents exercise their privacy rights and report concerns. Second piece of legislation that she's looking for is Senate Bill 3355. It expands the Illinois Consumer Fraud and Deceptive Practices Act for social media. It would require all social media companies to have a free customer support service to address issues and complaints. You've got other pieces of the Safe Screens, Healthy Minds initiative that would require social media platforms to create an identification verification process in order to protect minors. And I think that this is where you could find some civil libertarians raising a red flag. What was it? Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley even said something similar to, we need to have identification for everybody on the internet. So for this one piece of legislation that Sue Rezin's looking for, again, it would require social media platforms to create an identity verification process in order to protect minors. What that would look like, not sure. How a state like Illinois could enforce such a thing when the internet goes everywhere around the world. Well, you look at what happens over in the EU, and they've got some laws that they're trying to curb what some say is free speech. Well, how is that going to impact the rest of the internet space? So how can a state like Illinois really enforce such a thing? Or could they just do geofencing and then everybody in Illinois is impacted by that particular bill while the rest of the country is not? Again, some interesting questions there, and as far as just the technical specifications of pulling something off like that. But then you get into the civil libertarian issues. I mean, listen, even Abraham Lincoln wrote under a surname. All right, he would write some of the most scathing criticisms of political leaders under a fake name. Now, old newspapers are not today's social media, but free speech is free speech. So I could see some people raising concerns about Sue Resin's measure there that she floated at the Illinois State House. You have one piece of legislation also that's raising some eyebrows. There hasn't been a lot of talk about this, but it is a bill that State Representative Cam Buckner filed, and it would essentially ban single-family zoning. Let's read through the synopsis here. This measure, House Bill 4795, would create the Single-Family Zoning Ban Act and defines zoning unit as a county, municipality, or township that's adopted zoning regulations and defines other terms. It provides that on and after June 1st, 2025, for zoning units with a population equal or greater than 100,000, but less than 500,000, and on June 1st of 2026 for zoning with population greater than 500,000, the zoning may not zone areas exclusively for single-family residential use. It requires middle housing to be allowed on property that's zoned residential. Requires adoption of zoning ordinances and zoning maps consistent with the act by June 1st, 2025 for zoning units with a population equal to 100,000, less than 500,000, and then up to 500,000 more the following year. So you're going to limit single-family zoning. An interesting proposal. I think you may hear even more about that in the days and weeks ahead. But that's been referred to the Rules Committee after being filed earlier this week. So interesting piece of legislation there. They do have some action they're going to be doing today. You got the House and the Senate in the Illinois General Assembly. They're set to meet, and then they go home for the week. But then they come back the following week, and February 21st is when Governor J.B. Pritzker delivers his State of the State and budget address, where taxpayers are going to find out more about how the governor wants to spend their money. So that's your State House preview and review here with Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. It is a true blessing to see so many people tuning in each and every morning. So I thank you guys, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right. We'll be back at it tomorrow here with Bishop on Air. Just make it happen. Give a shout out to people tuning in live. Thank you guys for being here. Big props to Roman, Warbot, Christopher, Friedman Brock, CNT Design, Captain Mike, Chris, Brett, TAT2D, SQRL. What is that? Tattooed Squirrel? Is that what that is? All right. No, I get it. It's going to be a fun license plate. Jordan, Bat, JL, Gregory, Tenebris, Dr. Fark Melton. That's an interesting comment there. Johnny, appreciate that. Also, Devil Dog, Hazel Eyes, Jim. You guys chatting it up in the live chat. And again, I promise tomorrow we may carve out some more time to jump into the Discord server and see what's fresh A lot of people in there. Honestly, I don't know what you guys are posting. A lot of different videos, but hey, more power to you if you're able to have some conversations. Keep it chill. No reason to get all crazy or anything. But if you do ever want to take part in the Discord, just get out your cell phone and use your camera to scan this QR code. Once you scan this QR code, you'll be taken to a website, Discord. If you don't use it, you could probably join the Bishop on Air channel as a guest, and then eventually, tomorrow, we'll get into the Your Calls section, all right? And then I'll ask you guys to get in there and raise your hand or let me know what you want to say, and we'll get your voices on, all right? So Your Calls. But again, you got to get to the Discord server. So get out your phone, scan that QR code, and make it happen, all right? It's Bishop on Air. I got to get out of here. You have yourselves a wonderful rest of the Thursday, and we'll be back at it tomorrow here with Bishop on Air.